Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Training Talk right here on Personal Defense Network. I'm Grant Cunningham, and this is the show where we talk about you, about your life, and how to protect it. In the next hour, we're going to be exploring how you can train and equip yourself to face your own worst case scenario and keep you and your family safe from harm. Now, we don't do politics or religion on this show, and you're not going to hear crazy conspiracy theories or fringe commentary. Just reliable information that you can put to use in your own life right now. Um, if you like this show, would you do me a favor? I would really appreciate it if you would share the show with your friends and your relatives and your coworkers and your neighbors and all those important people in your life. Tell them about Training Talk and about all the great stuff that we talk about and present on this show. And if you like the show, I'm sure your friends will too. So please share it all over your social media. Of course, as always, if I enjoy getting your emails, please send your emails to grant@grantcunningham.com. Oops, there we go. Grant@grantcunningham.com. Feel free to send those emails along. In fact, I just got one today from a nice fellow who used our special coupon code to get a deal on PDN premium membership, and we'll talk about that later in the show. But he wrote a nice email to thank me for giving him that code. So you're quite welcome there, Jim. I'm glad you were able to use it. So, if you're new to the show, welcome. Thank you for stopping by and seeing what we're all about. And if you're returning, thank you once again for choosing to spend time with us here. It's much appreciated, and I hope to be respectful of your time and give you information that you can actually use. Now, if tonight it looks like I'm wincing in pain when I move, it's only because I am. Uh, and it's wood cutting time here in the forest, and this is the time of the year when we start to cut wood to season for next year because we heat with wood in our house. And I haven't been getting a lot of exercise lately, so I've been working really hard doing a lot of stuff and just not getting a lot of exercise. So I decided that this year, for this year's wood cutting, that instead of using the hydraulic splitter that I always use, I decided to split all of our firewood by hand. And and I'm talking trees that are like you know like huge trees. And as a result, I'm I'm a little out of shape by a minute, and as a result, it's just like it's been incredibly painful, and so I'm just getting too old for this stuff. So that's why if you see me wince in pain, because I am. Before we get started this evening, I want to talk just very, very quickly about something that I get emails about this time of the year all the time. And I always get this email that says, gosh, I really want to get my wife or girlfriend, my significant other, a gun for Christmas. What do you suggest? And I really really want to sometimes get a little snarky with people, but the honest answer I have, if you're thinking about this, guys, my honest answer is don't buy her a gun unless she already knows exactly what she wants and she's already made an informed decision about what she wants. I recommend that instead of buying her a gun, that you buy her a gift certificate to your local gun store, and preferably a local gun store that has a range and a lot of rental guns that she can try out and find one that fits her properly, that she can reach all the controls on, one that she can deal with the recoil appropriately, all that stuff that we always talk about. But allow her to go find the gun that she wants and then use her gift certificate to buy it. Uh, and I know there are a lot of guys will say, well, I bought my gun a wife for Christmas or a birthday or something, and it worked out fine and great and everything. But I see so many times when it really doesn't work all that well. The very often the gal decides that she really doesn't like shooting because the gun doesn't fit her hand, or it hurts her, or she can't reach the controls, or she hasn't been taught how to properly manage the slide on the semi-automatic pistol, whatever it is. And I see them all the time. And if they have the interest and the desire to actually get out and get themselves educated and learn how to get past these things, that's great. But so often the gun ends up in a drawer or in the bottom of the safe or something, and she never touches it again. And we've lost the chance to bring somebody into the shooting world who might really get excited about it and enjoy it. So my recommendation is gift certificates, not guns. Now, again, the caveat to this is that if she's a shooter already or she has a gun already, she knows what she wants, well, great, go buy the gun for her. In fact, I had a case just this week. Somebody asked me, his wife has a 6-inch stainless steel revolver, and she wants another revolver, but that's a little smaller and lighter, but not an airway, because that's too light, and I agree with her. So she knew kind of exactly what she wanted, and he simply wanted some advice on which gun he should give her. And so I gave him some ideas, so he can go down now to the local gun store and actually buy a gun that is something that she wants. That's the exception to the rule. If she's new to shooting, if she really hasn't had professional instruction yet, or she doesn't have a great deal of experience shooting, get her the gift certificate. And if you can, include a gift certificate for a beginner's class where she can get good information, good instruction from the get-go. When my wife started in shooting, I did not teach my wife how to shoot. I was smart, and I went out and got another instructor that I know and had him put her in his class, and he taught her how to shoot, and that worked out really, really well. And I did that so that she would have a good grounding. And of course, she learned what kind of gun she wanted. And then I could actually give her the gun that she wanted. And I did. So, folks, I've been married 30 years now. I know this stuff inside out. It took me a while to learn this stuff, but learn from the hard experience of others. If you have a non-shooter in your house and you want to buy her a gun, get her a gift certificate instead. Trust me, it's better in the long run. So that's my annual rant. I do this rant about just about every Christmas because the same questions come up every Christmas. So tonight we've got Rob Pincus joining us, and we're going to have an interesting discussion. And this interesting discussion is about defensive handgun design. Now, Rob and I have something in common, and we've both designed defensive handguns from the ground up. I was on the design team for the Kimber K6S revolver. Guess what I recommended to the guy whose wife wanted a new revolver? Yeah. And of course, Rob has developed the Avidity Arms PD-10 pistol. And it's not very often in the gun world that experienced teachers and people who understand defensive use of the handgun are actually consulted in the design of a new gun. We very often see people doing special editions of, say, a 1911 or something. We see that all the time, but a new gun from the ground up and getting input into the design of that gun from the very start doesn't happen very often. And in this particular case, I think we're probably the only two people, at the moment, that could probably have this discussion. Now I see Rob is logged in. He's muted. Rob, are you there?
I'm here.
Yeah, right. There he is. Hey, how you doing?
Oh, pretty good. Pretty good. It's been an exciting year. It's been an exciting year. It's been a very busy day and a busy week, and I was trying to figure out how far back to go, and it's been a busier year than I thought it would be. Good to see you.
So, yeah, you did something with Black Guns Matter recently, didn't you?
Yeah, it was a busy day, and then I was like, well, it's been kind of a busy week. How did it start? Oh yeah, I went to Atlanta and did a Black Guns Matter event, which was cool. It was a bunch of good friends were there. Zeke, who I work with at SDI, I'm on their council. Tisma from the outreach program at NSSF was there. Matt from Daniel Defense was down there. They supported. I met a bunch of great people at Stoddard's. Brandon Bond, my buddy, came over, one of the greatest, most well-known and talented tattoo artists on earth, happens to have his place in Atlanta. He was there. And of course, Maj Touré, the guy who runs it, puts it all together. I feel like Argo J, a lot of people know him online. Yeah. He was there. And it was great. It was a beautiful range. Stoddard's was up there. And we had, I don't know, 100 plus, 120 people maybe were there in the audience at one point. 80%, 90% of which maybe had never been to a gun range. And a large portion had never shot a gun at a gun range. Some people had never shot a gun at all. It was a really interesting crowd, interesting event. And, it's about education. And that's what I do. So I was asked, I actually met Maj in May, I guess, at the NRA annual meeting, and told him, if you ever need anything, let me know. And we talked a few times since then, and this one fit the schedule. And I'm really glad I went. I met a lot of really great people, and looking forward to doing more follow-up and outreach and just education, letting people know what resources are available. Because I think just like any community, if you aren't reaching out and correcting the myths or the misconceptions, if there's people in the Black community that think that they're, not welcome at a gun shop, hey, I get that. I've walked into gun shops and not felt welcome. But Stoddard's and Cape Gun Works and Bristlecone and Reno Guns and Range, Athena Gun Club. There's just too many great gun clubs to list and great gun ranges with modern staff, modern, well-trained, educated, articulate people. It's not all, pawn shops in a strip mall, which some of them are great too. But if I'm going to send somebody as a first-time gun buyer, I'm not sending them to a pawn shop in a strip mall. I'm sending them to a facility like Stoddard's or like any of the other ones I mentioned,
I know what you're talking about. Hippies are not generally welcome in most gun stores, even in the state of Oregon. So yeah, I understand that. Cool. Sounds like a fun time.
It really was. It was a good group of people, and I'm glad I went. And then I've been down here I'm at the home range, Ancient City Shooting Range this week, and thought I was gonna have a couple days of just kind of shooting some PD10, and we're still working through some production choices, this barrel maker or that barrel maker kind of thing. And it's been an exciting, adventurous week. My dad came into town. He got to shoot the PD10 for the first time. He kind of surprised me. I thought he was going to be here today. He showed up on Monday. I've got a lot of friends in town. Rob Latham's getting in here in a little while. We're doing a team-up class this week. We've been taping for PDN. Derek Poole's here. Jason Falla from Redback One happened to be in town teaching at the range that I have here is the home range. It's not my range, but teaching it kind of like my range-ish. And it was cool to meet him. We had a couple beverages together this week, and got to talk a lot more than we ever have, other than just passing each other at SHOT Show or commenting in a Facebook thread. So it's been a really busy week. Lots of old friends, new friends, and lots of interesting happenings going on.
Cool. Yeah, I had forgotten that your class with Latham is this weekend, and I'm sure this is going to be interesting. I hope there will be video.
Oh, I can't imagine. We are taping for the Worlds Collide. We're taping some new Worlds Collide episodes tomorrow, and then the class is Saturday and Sunday. And I just from the people I know, I'm sure he's got some alumni that he knows coming to the class. I've got some coming to the class, friends, instructors, and just from the attendee list alone, if Latham doesn't even show up, I know it's going to be an interesting weekend and fun and good questions and good interaction. But he and I have guaranteed everyone that we are going to enjoy ourselves, and that usually entertains other people. And we've both taught a lot of classes, and that usually means people get educated. So this is going to be one of those rare occasions where I'm teaching a class that's not all, this is life and death. We're going to be talking about some game stuff and some, basic shooting mechanic stuff. And I'm sure it's going to be more fun than the average 2 days on the range with me anyway.
Cool. Well, I can hardly wait to see the evidence of this. So tonight, I wanted to talk about handgun design, because you and I both now designed defensive handguns from the ground up, which doesn't happen very often, right, in the gun world. And I wanted to have a little discussion about about that and the things that we put in and why we put them in and what this is. But I want to start off, and I didn't intend to start off with this. All right, understand that this is I'm off script at this point.
I don't have a script. So
yeah, I know. So, so I put this up on social media today that this was going to happen, and almost immediately I got the grousing that, oh my God, the PD-10 isn't out. Rob's taking forever with this. Is it ever going to get here? And all this sort of thing. And so I want to start with that because I don't think
no 320 owners, no SIG P320 owners are saying that though.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think most people understand how long this takes.
I certainly didn't.
Yeah, when I was, when we were doing the K6 for Kimber, that took us a couple of years, and that's with a gigantic company with teams of engineers, MIT graduate engineers, and all this stuff, and it still takes a couple of years. And so I just want to tell them, listen, show me all the guns that you've designed and brought to market, and then you can complain. But it just takes a long time, doesn't it?
Well, not only that, here's the thing. It does take a long time, but you and I talk a lot. Like, we've done a lot of collaboration. We spend a lot of time together. I'm the executive director of PDN. You do PDN's Training Talk, and you've taught with me on ranges, and we've wrote for each other's books, and we do a lot of stuff. We've hung out, we've drank wine, and I found out about your role in the K6 project like the day before it was announced. So that's what people don't get is I went ahead and said, hey, look what I'm doing. Like 2 years plus before those guns are going to be sitting on retail shelves. And that's never done, right? Like very, very rarely. In fact, the industry in general has a little bit of a headache from when companies used to announce guns and start advertising campaigns long before the guns were available, right? And I get that what I've done is sort of akin to that, but here's the difference. I think there's a difference, is you didn't see my gun reviewed on the cover of Guns and Ammo magazine because I bought $80,000 worth of advertising in Guns and Ammo magazine the year before my gun was ready, and they photoshopped something that looked like my napkin sketch into a real gun and put it on the cover and said, the greatest new single stack handgun ever, right? And that's what used to happen. You used to get that with, I remember like the 45 Gap, whatever that was, the Glock 37 was reviewed by everybody like a year before it was a real thing, right? And I'm sure there were prototypes or whatever, but I remember when I did the review for that for Glock for SWAT magazine, we were like a year and a half after everybody else. We were like, why are you just covering that now? We put it on the cover. And I said, well, it just came out. Like, we got one of the first production ones, So there's a difference between the advertising campaign and the, hey, look what we're doing. And then what I think is I think it's neat, the behind the scenes. Like, I think it's cool when I show people a video. I posted a video this week, like, here's a problem. The slide stop spring, I think it needs to be a little stronger. And you're seeing that in this video. Like, if I were going to buy a gun eventually that I was going to potentially defend my daughter's life with, I think it's kind of interesting to see that the guy designing it and manufacturing it is out spending time out on the range, acknowledging that it didn't just miracle itself into existence, So that's what I'm trying to do. And would I have loved for the gun to have been out last year? Absolutely. But I think the best thing we can do now is share that process with everybody so people are a little more educated. As you said, I did the research on this, and other than the things that we're doing right now, people, if you go back and ask people, you get Bill Jordan with the Combat Magnum, the Model 19 Smith & Wesson, but was that really him designing a gun, or was that him saying, hey, stick this cartridge in this frame size? There's influence there for sure. Jeff Cooper gets credit for the Bren 10, but they brought him a finished gun. They're like, here, look at this. It was in 45. And he said, well, what about this 10 millimeter round? And the round existed already. And then they said, oh, that'd be neat, and changed the name and put his logo on it. And then you got that one. He gets Steyr Scout Rifle, but that was a compromise of a lot of his ideas about a scout rifle that he had talked about for years. So other than like those four guns, those three guns, those two guys, and the two things we've worked on, other than that, like you said, it's oh, this one has night sights, or this is a green version of this guy, this other handgun, and now it's the XYZ's version. And I can remember like Clint Smith with a Thunder Ranch 1911, or he had some Thunder Ranch revolvers. That's probably the earliest one I remember of that. But who knows how many other gun sight version of this or whatever. This is a different thing, and especially starting a new company, it's been an adventure.
Yeah, and I think this is more. I think what you've done, sort of allowing people to see the behind the scenes stuff that happens in gun design. That's the kind of stuff that, because I'm watching you, today talking about the barrels, and I'm thinking, oh yeah, I've been there, trying different parts and that kind of thing, and allowing people to see that process, to see what happens. Is really kind of neat. It doesn't that never happens. I mean, at Kimber, that entire design process was like locked down under NDAs and couldn't talk about it, right? So this is cool.
Well, yeah, I think I appreciate you kind of bringing that aspect of it. I've talked about it a couple times, and it's almost like off the radar now. Like I'm like I guess I'm like become enough of a manufacturer, I guess, that that's what we're focused on. There is no distraction from the hype or the marketing or the what's it going to look like, or what are people going to think, or are people going to understand why it's this or why it's that. That information's been put out, and I'm sure we'll be, marketing and advertising the gun for years to come, hopefully. But right now, it really is focused on the aspects of it's all balanced, right? It's balancing reliability, precision, cost, delivery times. It's a lot of different things, and reliability has to be there. How much precision does the gun need? Do I need do I need a barrel? Of course, if we compromise reliability to get a higher level of precision from everything being tighter, that's a no-go. But if it really does come down to the barrel costs $20 more, but the group size is a third of an inch smaller at 25 yards, who really cares? I don't think the defensive shooter really cares about a third of an inch at 25 yards if the gun is, 475 versus 545. Cost into the wholesale price and everything else. So it's weird decisions that I never thought I was going to ever have to make that I'm having to make.
It's that balance aspect. I'm glad you used that word, because it's really that balance aspect that makes the difference between the guns that we're talking about here and the guns that are typically built, because the balance point, and as you said, there are a lot of things. There's the precision, there's cost, there's frame size, hand fit, smoothness, sights, all that stuff, and all that stuff gets balanced, but somebody makes a decision about where that balance point is going to be. And I think what we're talking about is choosing a different balance point where the features and the operation is heavily skewed towards the job of defending yourself and or defending your family with this firearm, than say going out and winning a championship like Latham does, or shooting ultra small groups like some people do. And
it's true. I had a meeting. I've had a meeting very recently about a company that wants to do a drop-in target trigger. And I've explicitly said, well, could we do an OEM? I said, I don't want to be like Glock ships they have, I guess, in the past. I remember back in the days, 17 and the Glock 35 and the 34, the 24, they shipped it with that 3.5 pound trigger. Right? Of actually thinking about that from a defensive handgun. I'm not going to a PDN 4-inch gun with a full size grip with a target trigger. Doesn't make any sense. Like, why would people choose? Let people choose because the people aren't choosing. Right? The problem is here's me making the gun of arms, and then the wholesaler gets it, and then some other, maybe a buyer's group gets it, end user retail guy gets it, and then the customer walks in. So one of these target only guns, target trigger meant for competition guns, ends up in the retail counter, and somebody falls in love with it, and they say, cool, I'm going to take it home, except it's got the target trigger, and they don't know any better, and I don't trust the steps in the retail line to educate that guy. So an aftermarket trigger, cool, but it's good. I want it like to be pink with like yellow stripes or something that no tactical guy would ever put in his gun, because it's a target trigger. Because we're going to do a 5-inch version. So the 5-inch version for single stack type competition, that makes sense. This is a 5-inch version is also for export to like Canada, because they can't have a 4-inch barrel. So there's all kinds of reasons to do a 5-inch gun, and sure, there's going to be guys that are going to want to compete with it. I want them that I understand they're going to want a different kind of trigger, but we're not going to put that kind of trigger out as an option to everybody and anybody, because then they're the same guy that shows up to my class with a drop-in trigger in his Glock that bypasses the, plunger safety, and I'm telling him he can't use it in class. And I don't want to set myself up for failure with my own gun, So those kinds of no front serrations. I don't want to encourage what I consider to be bad gun handling. So I get it. Like there's 10 guys that are like, oh, it wasn't at front serrations, I won't buy it. Okay, well, don't buy it. I'm not going to compromise my role as an educator for my 9th role as a gun designer to sell 10 guns to that guy, because I think there's another 100 people that'll get it. And maybe there's 50 people that'll stop putting their hand up there near the muzzle because there's no front serrations. You're going to learn to run the gun from behind the ejection port. So there's a lot of these things going on that I think you're right, people just don't understand. And those things will come out over time, or people won't ask, and they'll never know. And meanwhile, the gun's going to hit the market, and I think it's going to do really well. And I'm super excited about all the positive feedback. And it's funny, there was a time period where, I'd post something, and there'd be a lot of negativity, like 50%. We're never going to see this. When's it ready? Now it's like 5%. Almost nobody does that anymore. It's almost all like positive and excitement and encouragement from the standpoint of, really glad you're trying to make this, as right as possible. Or, people will say, glad you're trying to make this perfect. And it's not going to be perfect, but we are trying to do it as well as we can.
It's funny you mentioned that about the target trigger, because I got kind of the same feedback after the K6 was introduced. And the question I got most often is, well, why don't you have a version with a hammer that you can cock? And I can't say, because I don't run Kimber, I don't know what they're going to do with the design. I can't say that they'll never do that, but from the design standpoint, that was just not something I've written. I'm on the record as saying cocking a gun, a revolver to single action, is stupid in self-defense. I firmly believe that. I teach that. And so, no, I wasn't going to say, okay, great. Yeah, you can have a hammer that you can cock as an option, because that doesn't fit within that ethos of design that sort of dictated what was going to be in the gun and what was going to look like. Which sort of brings up naturally the next question. When you start,
you do have a standing offer from Avidity Arms if you want to do another revolver that you can actually control and you don't have to worry about us putting a hammer on. Come on over.
Okay, we'll talk about that. I'll let you get the PD10 done first.
Thanks.
So this brings up a natural segue into a question. When you started this process, what was sort of the grand overall vision that you had? If you can distill it down, what did you ultimately want this gun to be? What was your overriding thought as you sat down and at the napkin or whatever and drew out the design for this thing?
Well, I think you know me better than to think that I had any kind of plan.
Yeah, I know.
But really, what it comes down to is I wanted to build a gun that I could stand. I think that right now I can tell you that looking back, there was some evolution to it, right? Because to a certain extent, you get pitched an idea, you get invited into a collaboration, or somebody suggests, hey, you should try this, and you don't really know where it's going to go. I will tell you that what I want to do now is make sure that a gun goes to market that I can stand behind, and that all the people who are collaborators of mine, including you, can stand behind. Even if you don't agree with, well, I would have made the trigger different, or I would have done it more curved or more flat, you could at least say, well, Rob did that because this, and it will make sense to you. So I want a gun that everybody will understand if they ask the questions, if they try to understand it. That will make sense to everyone from the standpoint of a gun that you can defend yourself with, that you can rely on to defend those you care about with, that if it's the right configuration, if you're an executive protection guy and you want a single stack slim gun to wear under a suit jacket, that it's a gun that you could use professionally. That's my goal, a gun that I can stand behind with that. I think initially what I would have said is something like, what would I do? And this is like the question I asked, and there's an article at icetraining.info about like the perfect concealed carry defensive handgun or something like that, or perfect defensive handgun for concealed carry. That was sort of a teaser. Before I even announced that we were doing this, I wrote that article to sort of put it out there in the public record. Here's the features list, right? Because if If some other company had come out with the exact same gun a week later, I'd have been mad, but at least I would have been able to say I called it, you know. But it was like I wanted shootability and carryability in some level of compromise. And I use those terms like they're real terms, but there's, you know, there's carryability is not just size, it's not just width, it's not just weight, it's everything. Can you carry this gun and conceal it responsibly for personal defense and wear it all day long? Are you going to be inclined to want to wear it all day long? You're going to have to compromise the way you dress, the way you sit, the way you stand to carry it. And then shootability. And those two things usually don't overlap really well, right? So if you look at that features list, and that's why people say, why does the PD10 have a full-size grip? You know, I carry a chopped gun. I'm carrying an XDS 4-inch right now. Like, why I carry a gun with a chopped grip? Why do I have a full grip? Because I'm not building a gun for me. I'm not building a gun that the perfect gun for me to carry. I'm building a gun that is this balance of shootability and carryability. A full-size grip, especially in a single stack gun, to give you more surface area in contact with your hand and more leverage against the gun's recoil and more to hold on to as you're isolating your hand from the trigger movement. A full-size grip is easier to shoot. Now, a single stack thin gun is going to be more comfortable to carry inside the waistband, where the vast majority of people I know who carry for personal defense responsibly trained people, they carry inside the waistband. So if you're or up against the body tight and high, some people will still carry outside the waistband, like at the 4 o'clock. The gun sits up against the body and it's tucked up high and close. So those two options require some level of thinness if you're not going to dress around the gun. And especially if you want to be able to sit in a car, if you're carrying back there at the 4 o'clock, or up if you're carrying appendix carry, you want to be able to move around, sit down, and not have this you know, not have to wear 4 layers of clothing and have the gun poking out, have a holster that has to like jam the gun into your belly, something like that. So thinness and lightness are both huge contributors to carryability. So the compromise really comes down to how long do I want the grip? And that came down to a capacity issue. Okay, well, 10 rounds in the magazine, that is a magic number for a lot of people. They want to, you know, can we get to double digits in the magazine? Not 9+1, but can we get to double digits in the magazine? We know there's a lot of states that limit people's capacity that they can have in the gun. And that we've always been afraid that that's going to happen more and more often, right? You and I lived through the 94 assault weapons ban with magazine limits and things like that. So there's verbiage now going through the House, through the Senate, that makes me fear that there's a lot of people that would love to see something like that stuck in the middle of all this positive legislation on expanding the right to carry. So 10 rounds is a safe kind of area, and it's also a magic kind of accomplishment area for a single stack gun. So that's how we ended up with the grip size that we had, was shootability, carryability, and being able to hit the 10 round +1 capacity.
You know, it's interesting that you talk about that, because when I was asked about what I would design for a concealed carry revolver in the 21st century, which is really how this whole process started for me, and I kept thinking back to, you know, the revolvers that I had, the revolvers that I shot, that were sort of really great. There, one really great phase, but they weren't quite there. There were, you know, little things that just weren't quite there. You know, the Colt Detective Special was a good example of a gun that, you know, the 6-round capacity, the small size, all that kind of thing, but there were issues with it. And as you're talking about the PD10, I'm thinking back to that same thing in respect to the semi-auto pistol. And I'm thinking back to all those, you know, single stack 9mm of the 1980s and the 1990s, you know, the Smith & Wesson 39s and the variants thereof, and the HKP7s, and, you know, that we looked at and said, God, these things are really cool. They're thin, you know, they're carryable because they're thin. They're really great, but there were just so much other baggage that came with those. So it's interesting. I'm sort of hearkening back to the thoughts that I had, because it's the same thoughts I'm having as you're describing the PD10. You know, here's this really cool envelope. Now, how do we make that usable and to live with and all that other kind of stuff, which is cool. When you sat down, what was the decision point that you decided, and why did you decide polymer rather than, say, aluminum for the frame?
That was never even a question. I don't know that I ever seriously. In fact, I'll tell you that may have become a question at one point. After we had some 3D printed, so we had some metal frame to test the geometry and to test some other tolerance issues and just kind of shootability of the gun. The first guns we shot were plastic printed frames with parts stuck in them and real slots. And then the next thing we did was, okay, that kind of worked. We'll change this, change that. Then we had some 3D printed metal frames, and they shot really well. They were fun to shoot. They were felt very different than in any. They were heavy. You know, I think I had them at SHOT Show one year, and some people checked them out. So there were some people that loved them, and I couldn't figure out in my mind why they loved them. And in talking to them, I just had another conversation over with a guy in Switzerland, a gunsmith over in Switzerland, who saw pictures of it online. And he goes, "Are you ever going to do the metal one?" So it kind of keeps coming up. So I have through the process of this gone through the mental. You know, I mean, it's easy enough, I guess, to give the design files to some machinist guy and or get, you know, 3D printing's coming along so fast. Like we could make a run of steel framed ones or aluminum framed ones. We could do that somehow, and it'd be kind of neat for the people that want it. But honestly, that's it. I mean, it's a novelty, and like people have asked, and you know, maybe I can look into it from a manufacturing standpoint, because there's no reason to go with polymer over any of those things except for cost of production. You know, now we've had to make a big investment in the mold and tweak the mold and all that. But once it's set, man, you know, you really like literally you just hit the button and they show up, you know. Then you can do different things with colors, and then you got the people that want to stipple it. You want to do this, want to do that, different contours on the hand. It's just when I see what people do with the polymer guns to customize them, to really kind of make it their own. And I think back to what I used to have to do, and I'm not sure, you know, what you did with revolvers. I can't even, like, that's like more artwork, I think, anything else. But when I think about like ordering 1911 parts, or thinking about checkering something, or putting grips on this or that, like it was a different deal. Like you needed like metal, you needed art skills, right? You needed like files and tools and things that today people, you know, I've seen people mash. I mean, I use a Dremel sometimes to chop guns, and that's not a good idea. But I just think it's a more durable in a reliability way. The guns are actually a little more reliable. There's less to worry about going wrong when you have the polymer. You know, it moves and kind of gives a little bit, and it's actually harder to get the metal guns to work. I learned that through the process, that in some ways that the polymer guns can be easier to rely on, which was interesting. That wasn't in my head when I started the manufacturing process, but I learned that along the way. But the steel guns are actually more sensitive to tolerances, which explains why 1911s behave like they do on the range. So there was never really a consideration for me to not make it in polymer.
Interesting. I'm waiting for the tie-dyed polymer version. Just, you know,
your request is logged,
just saying. I want to take just a couple of minutes out from the discussion, pause for just a couple of minutes to talk for a minute about something I know is near and dear to your heart, and that's premium membership here at Personal Defense Network. And I'm glad I've got you on, because I don't even know the answer to this question, because I've told people about all the videos that we have on the premium membership side of Personal Defense Network, you know, all the great full-length DVD length stuff that we have. How many hours of video do we have on Personal Defense Network now?
I don't know. The last I checked, there were 90. I don't know what I didn't use my computer, right? You can see me right here, right? I'm still alive.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll tell you how many, but the last time I checked, there was like 90 pages of articles or videos per page. And you figure the average video we have might only be like 6 or 8 minutes long, but some of them are 20, right? Some of them are, we have that one full-length double DVD that is almost 2 hours long, you know? But if I look at this, okay, so now we're up to 104. So there's 100, just in the video section alone, there are 104 pages. And on the 104th page, there's only 2 videos. And one goes back to shooting stance and movement. And it's me and Jeremiah Miles at Valhalla training center, probably videoed in 2005 or 6. That's page 104. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and there's 9 videos on page 103. So over 100 pages, 100, that's 800, over 800 videos alone. If they average 6 minutes, somebody else do the math.
Wow.
There's a lot. So okay, I'll tell you an example. So at the Black Guns Matter, right? I said, look, I just gave you like whatever it was. I gave you a free class in that. We just talked about this. And here's what I want you to do. Everybody pull out your phone. You've all got phones, okay? I mean, you've seen me present at NRA. You know kind of how I do, right? So everyone pull out your phones. Pull your phones out. Come on, you got phones, okay? Put in personaldefensenetwork.com. And everybody laughs. I said, no, seriously, just do it. Yeah, and you know how it is. 20% class participation, maybe. That kind of stuff. I can see them doing, okay, now here's why I want you to do it. When you do that, and this goes for everybody here too. This isn't just for that group. It goes for every group. This is my sales pitch. Here's my sales pitch. Open it up. After you scroll around a little bit, within like 2 minutes, there's gonna be a pop-up window, and it's gonna say something to the extent of, "Give us money to become a premium member." And I've asked, believe me, I've asked the IT side, and apparently it can't be done. But I said, can you just like track IP addresses or something? I don't want someone to even have the option of becoming a premium member until we know they've watched, like 5 videos or read 2 articles or something. Like, listen, we're giving you a sales pitch 2 minutes in, just hit the X. I want the pop-up to show up, hit the X, and now go see something for free. If you could spend 3 months, 6 months, whatever, watching just the free videos to establish that Personal Defense Network brings you value, and then sign up. So here, that's my sales pitch tonight. It's probably not what normally gets said, nor what I'm necessarily supposed to say, but look at it. Now we're going to run some sales at Christmas and all that. And I get it. You may want to become a premium member or gold member because the Christmas sale price makes it, irresistible. You want to take the online classes. And if you become a gold member, you get the free classes and then you get discounts on the rest of the classes. I got it. Love to have you as a premium or gold member. But if you're brand new, or if you want to share this with somebody else, I know the annoying pop-up is going to pop up. Hit the X and drive on with the free stuff, because there are hundreds of hours. There are months worth of study and research and education you can get for free. And if you found it valuable, then you're going to find that premium membership or gold membership that much more valuable.
I've often said that I've been on this since the beginning, and I haven't seen everything that's here yet. I haven't even seen everything on the premium side. I haven't seen everything. I don't think it's possible.
Technically, I guess I've seen everything because I either approve it or I've been in it, but I can't begin to tell you what's there. People
exactly.
Ask, where is I don't know, Google search.
Yeah. So for those people who want to sign up for premium membership, if you're excited about it, you've seen the free videos, you've seen the articles, and you want more, you want all the longer videos and the DVD length videos and all that other stuff. Sign up for free membership. And if you put in the code GRANT10, GRANT, the number 1, the number 0, all one word, GRANT10, when you check out, there's a little, like a discount box there. Put that in and you'll get your first year of premium membership for $10. And it's like the best deal going in the universe right now. So sign up for that. And be sure to share, of course. If you find something really cool on PDN, share it on social media. Tell people about it. And there's a lot of good stuff to tell people about here. All right, cool. Let's get back to the discussion. So the question becomes, as you're going through this design process and you're doing all the prototypes and everything, did you reach a point where you thought, my initial idea for this little detail here wasn't good, and I either found it didn't work or I came up with something better in the meantime, and then you changed it as you went along? Did anything like that happen to you?
Yes, yeah, for sure. Because of the way the trigger is designed, the trigger press is one of the most annoying things I deal with on the range is people who have quote unquote learned to stage their trigger. So because of the way a lot of the modern striker fired guns work, there's like almost no resistance for like some portion of the trigger press, and then there's a wall. For some of the other triggers, there's very little resistance, and it sort of ramps up and stacks up and gets harder. And I think it creates all these horrible habits. It makes it hard for people to shoot. And when you try to teach them what they're supposed to do, which is just press the trigger until the gun goes off, it's very hard to do that because there's differences in pressure and differences, especially some dramatic differences where it's almost like a two-stage trigger. You know, some of these semi-automatic guns, the striker-fired guns, they're kind of like an AR two-stage trigger where there's nothing, and then so you've engaged the trigger, you move it, then you shoot. Well, with a rifle, if you're doing precision rifle shooting, that kind of sort of is okay. It might make sense to you. It might be the way you want to do it because you want the break to be so crisp, but you also want to make sure your finger's in contact with the trigger. So you have a two-stage trigger. Well, it doesn't make any sense in a defensive, close quarters, counter ambush type 9mm handgun. So I wanted a trigger that was going to give you a fair amount of pressure right away. Let's say if it's a 5-pound trigger, it's going to give you, 4.5 pounds right there, right? And then be relatively consistent up to that break at the back end of the trigger. Press the trigger correctly, and you're pressing the trigger the same way. There's been a lot of people who've said triggering or putting your finger on the trigger when you're not supposed to. Single action, like in law enforcement, right? There's a lot of law agencies that issue double single action guns. They want a longer, heavier 12 trigger, and I'm not talking the length of a P226 or a HA USB. So I'm going to striker fired gun with a normal length of about 4.5 break. So when you touch the trigger, you press it all the way through, and that's a long trigger pull. Measure it, it's not really a long trigger pull, but if you're used to one of the modern striker fired guns that we recommend, it's definitely longer than what you're used to. So it seems long. You only use pressure on that trigger for a short amount of time in most cases. So getting used to if you're used to other things. But if you're a double action revolver, lighter what you've already been dealing with. So it's a little bit less long and it's a little lighter. So it's an 8-pound. What's the case? What's the pounds on the K6?
You just disappeared for about 3 seconds there. Why don't you say that again?
What's the official weight of the trigger pull, the double action trigger pull, the K6?
Officially somewhere between 8.5 and 9 pounds.
So it's like that. 4.5 to 5 pounds is kind of our target range. And first shot, there's a sharp push back on the trigger that pushes you back to the. It's not. You don't have to wait for it. It's pushing you back out. From there, still 4.5 pounds, but it's a much shorter travel distance. You don't have all the way back out and all the way back in. So it's a sort of almost like a hybrid kind of trigger, I think. All this to get back to your question, design. I didn't think blade safety was necessary. End up with when we first designed the gun, a lot of people see all the early pictures and don't have the blade safety. It's because there's two reasons blade safety. The first reason, the one kind of everybody knows, is that everybody has always known, is that the edge of the trigger, as you're reholstering or something like that, and you pressure on the side of the trigger, because that has to get pushed out of the way to sort of unlock the trigger. Yeah, M and P, it's hinge, and if you're used to the Glock or the Springfield, it's that tab in the blade. As a lot of people learned over the months, the other reason for that type of safety is it's a secondary type of initial safety. Lock safety, drop on the nose, and the firing pin can't go. It's that side of the 320 situation. If you drop backwards, which is a separate piece from the frame, has enough mass, its inertia can actually fire the gun. It's moving, the trigger keeps going, and the finger of gravity has just fired your, the physics there might be a little crazy for people, but that's what's happening, is the trigger keeps moving because it's heavy enough to very light, short travel distance, a light weight and a short travel distance, which the original 320 had. That's why you need a tab safety to keep that from happening. There's no way you're going to get enough that full travel under a full 4.5 or 5 pounds. You're not going to get that much pressure out of it, a slam drop from the way the PD-10 was designed. But we still had the first reason for the tab safety, which is your trigger gets caught. And then honestly, this happened, and we did make this decision long before the thing came out with the 320. The industry wants it. The community wants it. They expect to see a tab safety. I wasn't the only one saying for years that the SIG P320 should have had a tab safety, a blade safety from the beginning. It was too short and too crisp not to. And our gun that isn't short and crisp was going to get one. That decision was made along the way. But originally, I thought we would go without it, just from a comfort standpoint and an aesthetic standpoint of not having it on the trigger. But the one we've designed, I think, is nice. I actually had spent the first serious amount of time with the final production ones over the last week to 10 days, looking at it and then feeling it and now shooting it a lot. It's exactly what we need, and I don't think anybody's really going to care. Certainly not anybody who's used to modern striker-fired guns. Nobody's going to think it's an uncomfortable version of that blade safety.
You know, it's it's interesting. The as you were describing this thing, I kept thinking about it, all the different ways in which people have tried to put safeties onto the trigger. I remember the Smith & Wesson's, what was it? Was it the Sigma with the like articulated, half articulated trigger and crazy stuff like that. And I was thinking back to, you know, some of the problems that they engendered by doing that instead of doing something else. That's interesting. When I assume, of course, we've talked, we know this thing's going to come with claw sights. It's going to come with a claw base pad, that kind of thing. And are you ever going to do anything with like a 33 round magazine? Just kidding. Just don't even go there. You know, I'm thinking, you know, like
it's going to be a drum.
Yeah, a drum would be very cool.
Chopped
because
grip,
somebody's going to ask that, right? Have you anticipated? I mean, I know the gun isn't out yet, but have you anticipated scaling this up to a double stack, or does that interest you at all?
It interests me, but it's not high priority. You know, the main reason to go to a double stack gun, when you look at it as an 11 round capacity, the first thing we're going to do is chop it and go down to a 7 or 8 round capacity, so it fits that profile that a lot of guys like with the shorter grip. That'll be the first thing we do. The next thing that we do with it is going to be the 5-inch version. Again, that's I think the 5-inch version is going to be even better in terms of shooting. It's going to help us with some export issues. It's easy to hide another inch of barrel. It won't surprise me if we see people who are, you know, maybe somebody who's always wanted to switch from that 1911, but they just can't find a gun that works for them. They haven't found a gun that's slim enough that fits their hand like the 1911 they love. Maybe this will be the gun that gets them to switch from you know, the 1906 gun to the 2016 gun that should have been out already. You know, I don't. So I do anticipate that we might see that with that 5-inch gun. I already have a second gun design. I sort of alluded to this about a week or so ago in the post. The napkin sketch has been done officially of the next project. And the next project after the chopped version and the 5-inch version of the PD10 is something different from Avidity Arms. There were actually 2 things that I wanted to do on my agenda for defensive firearms, and I had to pick one of them. I actually did some testing today. Already did some proof of concept testing to send some things to an engineer on what it is that we're going to be working on as far as that project. So that's already happening in the background. And the double stack PD10 or the PD17 or 18 or whatever it would be are certainly it's certainly something that I imagine will happen. But there are other agenda items first.
You know, one of the things that I missed out on because, of course, Kimber being a relatively mature company, one of the things I missed out on is things like building a dealership network. You know, I missed out on all of that stuff. What have you learned about doing that? Because you're starting fresh. You know, got to find people to sell these things. Have you learned anything interesting there yet?
I've learned some interesting things, but I can't really claim that we're starting fresh there. You know, our parent company is Eagle Imports, and Eagle Imports has set up a dealer and distributor relationship, wholesaler relationships that go back 30 years. So Eagle imports obviously a lot of different guns from all around the world. Versa is their most well-known line, well-established line, and they've been doing that for, like I said, about 30 years. So they have a network that we're just sort of getting plugged into. Now, some of the things that go on there are interesting. And I've been involved with some different projects before, and I've known, I was telling a story the other day about going out and hunting with the execs over at Davidson's, 20 something years ago here in Northern Florida. And I've known these guys and known the processes of the retail side and wholesale side pretty well. But now being in the middle of it, instead of just kind of sitting off to the side and go, oh, I sell ideas, not things, and now it's now actually having things. It's interesting to see there's some, natural, there's politics and stuff like that. One of the things that's interesting is how protective people can be about, shelf space. I mean, I think in my world, you hear about it like, the General Mills, the cereal gets put on the shelf a certain way. And if, they go and inspect at the Acme, and if the Cheerios isn't in the right place, they get mad because they pay for, eye-line shelf space. They pay more and that kind of thing. So it's kind of like that, it's not quite that detail level or well organized, I guess, in the gun world, but there is some of that goes on, and it's not just getting, first thing I'm excited right now. I mean, like Lipsy's, RSR, some of the other places already list the PE10 as an item, but they list it out of stock, right? So that's kind of exciting, except it does create another wave of, why can't I order this gun? And then hopefully people find out and they say, okay, well, that's worth waiting another couple months for. But it is exciting to see that, because we've already been taking orders from the wholesalers as of last month or month and a half ago at NASGW, the trade show for wholesalers. But the politics of, now you've got the gun listed, now we're going to buy your gun, but we only sell this gun on Tuesdays, and our call center really pushes polymer guns on Thursdays. So which Thursday do you want to be put? It's that kind of stuff. And it's like, wow, there's like a whole new level of internal marketing or internal posturing and positioning and selling that has to happen. And but it's great to be working with Eagle, because the team there, they're very experienced. They have great relationships. The people in the industry know them as straightforward in terms of backing up their product. Of course, the Video Arm is going to have a lifetime warranty standing behind it, and it's really important to have those relationships and not to have to build them. I've been in the industry long enough. I felt confident that, I feel confident if I had to, we'd get this gun into the wholesalers pretty fast. But working with Eagle makes it easy.
Cool. Well, believe it or not, we're just about out of time. And I know you've got people to go see. You got to go see Latham and all that kind of thing. In the, like 2 minutes we got left, anything you want to say?
I will say this, because this is, we're on Training Talk. We're using the Google Hangouts, and we're going out over YouTube and everything else. This is Training Talk, and in the training community, a lot of people know that James Yeager is a good friend of mine. I've known him forever. I've been on his range. He's been a student in my classes. I've been a student in his classes, and he can be controversial. And apparently, he's now been banned from Facebook, and he's been banned from YouTube, and there's all kinds of things going on with him. And I was texting with him back and forth earlier, and I said, here's the thing. I know a lot of people are running around unban Yeager. I get it. But what I will say is I offered him this. I said, if you want to broadcast, you want to share some training information through PDN, you let me know. Because he's as a trainer, if he wants to do that, he's welcome to do that. I understand, there's a reason we have PDN, and there's a reason that this video will be embedded at Personal Defense Network. YouTube's a private company, Google's a private company, Facebook's a private company, and just like I'm not going to go into, Ruth's Chris with a pocket full of, steaks and start trying to sell my own steaks in their business. If YouTube and you aren't following the rules and you aren't doing things the way you're supposed to do, and even if you're not, they just wake up one morning and they say, you know what, we don't like, we support PETA. We don't want to support hunting, so hunting's off. I'm mad. I don't like it. It's not fun. It's not cool, but it's their house. It's their house, their rules. So just from a commenting on Training Talk about something that's being talked about in the training industry, I wanted to put that out there and sort of express my position on it. But if he wants to come out and teach somebody how to reload a gun or whatever, we'll certainly welcome his training information here at PDN as far as that side of the topics go. I appreciate what you do. You've had a great year on Training Talk. I get a lot of feedback. I don't micromanage the show. I don't even know what you're doing half the time until I get the chance to look at the videos. But From a PDN, from the PDN standpoint, I'll tell you that I really appreciate everything you've done all this year, and I get a lot of really great feedback about this show. So if there's anybody who follows PDN or follows me, and you're watching tonight, but you don't tune in twice a month to see Grant, tune in every 2 weeks, because you hear me all the time. He's got lots of great guests, lots of PDN contributors, and he's got some great insight. So that's the pitch for this show. If you're only watching it because you saw it on my social media.
Okay, cool. Rob, thanks so much for taking the time. I know you're busy, because you always are. And thanks for taking the time. And if I don't see you before then, have a good Christmas, okay?
You too.
All
Happy
right, man.
holidays.
Thank you. Rob Pincus, everybody. So thank you for showing up, Rob. That was really great. And speaking of the next episode of Training Talk, that's going to be 2 weeks from tonight, the 21st, just a few days before Christmas. And you will want to check out, because we're going to have the gala end of the year show. We're going to get as many of the Training Talk guests as we can on one show. And if you saw our gala year-end show last year, you'll know it's a lot of fun. It's a zoo, it's a circus, whatever you want to do. It's very cool. So be sure and check that out 2 weeks from tonight, the 21st of December at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, right here. Of course, don't forget about the free PDN newsletter that you can sign up for. Don't forget about the $10 for your first year of membership, premium membership here at Personal Defense Network. If you use the code GRANT10, G-R-A-N-T, the number 1, the number 0, all one word, put that in at checkout. And we're about done for tonight. So we'll see you hopefully 2 weeks from tonight for our gala year-end episode just before Christmas, the 21st of December. Until then, stay safe, everybody. Bye-bye.